あ、別に読み上げてもチャットに書いてももちろんいいよ。もしくは写メ撮ってディスコードに貼れてもいいよ。Okay. Low preferred product, if they have POI, is accept, and then take the POI. I'd like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So firstly, characterization of the private financial institutions. Second, we want to explain why only financing is unlikely to lead to better environment. At the same time, focusing on the characteristics of these major emotion, and finally explaining how counterfactual, why on our side we can provide a better environment. So firstly, characterization of the private financial institutions who do these kinds of investments. So these actors are asset management companies such as Morgan Stanley and so on. We believe that their incentive for doing these kinds of investment, which is lead investment as well, is because they simply want money. They are profit seekers. They want to get money from these kinds of investments by investing money to these major polluters. When they get the money back, they have the interest, which in itself is a lot of money. Secondly, they do this only financing because they want to appeal that they are doing ESG investment. They want a good image towards the public that they are doing green, they are contributing to green businesses and so on. Simply they want to do this because they don't want the public to have to protest towards these private investment companies, or they don't want to have a bad image because the clients who make bank accounts or provide their own money for these financial institutions to invest in the first place might back up in the case that they have a bad image, and as a result, they can't continue their business as an investment institution. So those are like their incentives and interests. Next, we're going to explain why refinancing is unlikely to provide a good environment and why pollution is likely to continue. Firstly, is that we believe these like major polluters by refinancing, it's unlikely that they will completely change their supply chain or business that is causing major pollution. They're likely to do these renewable projects, like maybe simply plant trees and so on, but that is not a fundamental solution towards the environmental problems, such as in the major polluting field, they might be polluting rivers severely with their factories and productions of their products, and they're like, and the rivers there are very like nasty, and the people on the ground likely to be diseased by this unsanitary and toxic places. But these renewable projects that these businesses do is unlikely to like fundamentally save these places. They might pollute in developing countries, but they just plant trees in Japan, for example. This is like this fundamentally does not change for the better. And secondly, is that we believe they are unlikely to have an incentive to do fully environmentally friendly businesses, because we believe that like they are likely to overestimate the cost to do renewable projects, like shifting their supply chain, or moving their factories in a more renewable way, or changing their electricity from fossil fuels towards other renewable sources. Simply is very costly, as long as these companies need to make profit or simply give back the funding with the interest in the first place. They have much pressurization to secure their profits, and as a result, they are unlikely to be able to do such kind of projects in the first place. And thirdly, is that there's very less risk or less scrutiny on these companies, because it's unlike being listed publicly in Japanese journal, not listed publicly for like any person to invest. Getting investment from these private companies, there's no obligation to report what kind of businesses they do, like occasionally, or like their accounting status and so on. In such cases, there's less public scrutiny, and also like governmental institutions such as like the police or the prosecution cannot gain access to such kind of information of the shady actions in the first place, because there's no obligation to show such kinds of reports. Situation. So there's less scrutiny. And fourthly, is that simply their main business, which is probably like polluting the world, it is likely more profitable. If they were to do like renewable projects and actually like in a thorough way, it's very, very costly. And these companies who want to maximize their profit are likely to invest more money into their like revenue profiting fields, which is likely to be like a very polluted. Yes.
On your counterfactual, these two financial institutions will like invest in which company?
That's what I'm explaining now. So in the end, what we're saying is that these major polluters are only to be able to give excuses to pollute. They can publicly say that they're receiving relief funding, meaning that they are doing businesses, while in reality they're actually polluting places and they're not fundamentally solving the environment. As a counterfactual, we believe the funding would be given to companies that are completely renewable in the space. This is because, firstly, there's likely to be cancel culture if these private funding institutions onto the very onto do like ESG investment, like the public is likely to scrutinize all these people. Secondly, there's like laws. We believe if like in the way that EU drive Morgan Stanley out of their country because they do investment towards all these bad companies. Like there's also lawful obligation to do investment for ESG. As a result, the only way that they can achieve this ESG investment without all these financing is to finance those companies that are truly renewable. We believe this is better. Firstly, because as long as a trade-off, the truly renewable companies that make like renewable sources of energy and so on, they can get more fund on our side. They can do more R&D, and also they can decrease the cost of their technology. And as a result, they can compete with traditional large corporations. And as a result, they can provide much more of these technologies towards the public, which is good for the environment. Secondly, we believe they have a good incentive. It's their original mission to make these green technologies. As the culture of the company, the heads of the companies, and also the worker, they have this mission to make the environment better in the first place. We believe in terms of incentive, they also have the mission to environmental be an environmentally friendly. So we're happy to this.
Knowledge that comments. Friends, you are first of all, please just stand up in progress, please, but you hasn't taken down the 6 minutes. Give me a start. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. We say that rather on our side, polluters are less likely to focus on projects which pollute areas, rather they are focused on the renewable project which does not harm like the area, but also profitable for these people, these companies, proud to oppose. Before moving on to our arguments, to Sarah, first of all, what is the characteristic of polluters, pollution companies? We say that they don't do pollution because they want to. Rather, they do pollution because they have no choice but to do that in order to get profit. I.e., there is this trade-off between pollution and profit. Why this is true? Means, first of all, reputation, right? We say that companies, if the companies pollute, in that case, they'll be reported by government which company does some kind of pollution, but also there must exist focus by media how certain company doing the pollution, but also more importantly, there must exist focus by investors which company actually doing wrong thing, which company pollutes the world. In that case, we say that investors are less likely to feel good to that company. And therefore, we say that this company does not want to pollute the world. But second of all, we say that they don't want to cause trouble with neighbors, right? If pollution happens, then obviously neighbors will suffer. Therefore, they might claim to government, or they might claim to the factory, or they might even do demonstrations so that they can profit from doing these kind of things, or there might exist destruction by the neighbors, or they at the end of the day must exist ecotourism by neighbors, and that's why we say that it is unlikely that these people actually want to do some kind of pollution. But what is the renewable project investment? We say that first of all, it's the investors first of all decide to which project they can use this kind of money. But second of all, we say that there must exist some kind of obligation report on how they were able to better to make their project better, or how they were able to make the renewable project better. Because this kind of incentive of investor is to make the society better, is to make the company less polluted to the area in their daily use. Let me move on to our argument. Why on our side, polluters are less likely to focus on projects which pollute area? Two biggest reasons here. First of all, let's focus on projects that pollute area. what happened on status quo is that these companies have no way to gain profit except for projects that pollute the area, right? They can't be, but the problem here is that they can't begin renewable projects because they have like, it takes so much money to do some kind of renewable project. For example, they have to, in order to do new projects, they need initial investment for mechanics, or to the know. But on the after plan, they'll be able to begin new project, renewable project. For example, like because they'll be able to do initial investment, which they get from this kind of like private financial institutions, but also they'll be like the continuous, like more continuable, like project because they'll be able to invest for a certain like period of time. In that case, it is more likely that these companies gain profit on renewable project rather than on this kind of like pollutive project. Therefore, they'll be less focused on this kind of pollutive project. But second reason here is that there'll be more incentive to be better for environment. Two incentives here. First of all, negative incentive. Although companies are invested by investors, these investors are doing this as only financing, right? Investors have aim of making these companies change their focus on current polluted project to new renewable project because otherwise there will be no like better situation for these kind of people. In that case, if companies keep on focusing on polluted one, investors less likely to increase investment, and at once they might cut off this kind of investment. In that case, we say this kind of company will try to focus on the renewable project rather than this kind of project, rather than more on outside house. Yes, Paul.
So without OB financing on our side, these large companies will be forced to completely shift to green businesses. Though it's costly for them, really at least it's better for the environment and the people that want to live.
I didn't see why this kind of big company will be forced to do some kind of green project. But second, moving on to the positive incentive. We say that any companies have incentive to get more investment so that they can expand their project, right? In that case, if they continue on expanding politic project, this like there is the less trust by this kind of investors who first of all they only financing to this kind of company. But if they change their stance and focus much on renewable project, they can advertise their success, right? How they were able to succeed in renewable projects and how they were able to like quit some kind of polluted project. In that case, investors will be able to trust these companies. Therefore, they'll be able to get rather more investment by these kind of investors. And therefore, there is this positive incentive for companies to stop this kind of like polluted project. What the impact here? First of all, purely, these companies will decrease focus on polluted project. What does this look like? Understand if company is like doing some kind of like pollutive like policy, for example, liver pollutive policy, on the other hand, they can implement water purification project or something like that. And in that case, they can get fee from these people so that they can gain profit rather more on this kind of water purification project. What the problem in status quo here is that they don't have initial investment cost. Therefore, they can't start these kind of things. And in that case, we say that not only people are less likely to suffer from these kind of things, but also these people these people on the ground will be profitable by the fact that this company actually doing water purification project or something like that. So there exists two great impact in this one. But moving on to the revenue, even if we assume that this company won't stop will not stop producing like project or something like that, still it is still there on our side. Why? Because on their counterparcel, they will like only invest to the perfectly renewable like project implementing company, right? But we say that in that case there exists few data because even if don't invest to these kind of completely renewable companies, still these companies will still do the completely renewable projects because even under the status that these companies are doing, in that case we cannot see the big data on this point. But on our side house, since we can like subsidize money to the companies where under the status have no choice but to do politic project, we can make the like big delta on this point because we can make the polluting company less polluting and more better for the and change this kind of companies like stance more better for the like environment. Therefore, we say that our like delta is much bigger than their house to oppose.
Starting my speech. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. First, just to tackle the characterization of these companies, they try to explain that they're not polluting because they want to. It's just that their circumstances forced them to. But several rebuttals to their case. They said that there's many like eco-terrorism, there's many scrutiny that's going to harm these companies. We think this is not so strong for two reasons. First of all, note that many of these companies operate in like developing countries where they have like a corrupt government that is unable to implement significant like environmental regulations. These are governments that can be easily lobbied by the company um, to like turn an eye on these companies. We don't think that such pressure is strong. But second of all, they talk about like backlash from individuals. We think talking about capacity of individuals in these countries, this is unlikely because these individuals are reliant because they are employees of these companies. They rely on this company to provide them profit. But moreover, they're more focused on putting food on the table rather than a large like speculative impact of this like pollution leading to climate change, etc. We think that in such situations, such risks are unlikely to occur, which means that they are in a state where they are able to continue pollution. It's beneficial for them to continue because they already have a supply chain that is set continuum that leads to like benefit for them. But they talk about how these companies like don't have the funds to actually turn green. We don't think this is true. This is talking about like a large company. We think that if they have the incentive to do so, they have the capacity to do so. Why this is the likely characterization? We're talking about companies that have massive pollution, which means that they have supply chains that use fossil fuels. This, in terms of likelihood, are probably companies that have been set like in the past for a long time because new companies probably tend to like follow these like environmental regulations and also know about their environmental, also be like aware of their environmental impact. And just the fact to be able to operate multiple factories that pollute already shows that this is not some company that is on a small scale or simply like has little profits that are unable to shift their operation to become more green. With that said, I'm going to explain why there will be more green companies on our side. There are two main mechanisms for this. First of all, talking about startups, we think that they are likely to feel like they have an additional advantage if they start green because they're able to start by like receiving these funds in order to take these like operations. So we explain how the likely can fractional because these private like investors have the incentive to do this like ESG investment when they are unable to rely on like investing in these renewable projects. What they're likely to do is to turn to these like specific green companies. And therefore, we think that many startups are likely to go green. But second of all, we think that even in terms of traditional companies are also likely to see the benefit in going green. This is especially true for the actors that opposition tries to describe that they have the incentive to become green. We think that they're still likely to have the incentive on our side when there's additional funds to like green companies, or second of all, they see that there's increased reputation, which is uniquely possible when you receive all the financing that has some like accountability where people can look to. But third of all, they receive pressure from like up and running companies that receive these funds and are able to compete against them. They're likely to fear losing their operation. All of these things that happen tips the cost and benefit analysis of these companies, which means that it's more easier in like meetings of like important board meetings of the company to push for stopping pollution. It's more easier for managers within the company to actually justify this with reasoning of why they have to stop pollution and why that's going to bring a significant benefit to the companies. We think that the actors that they describe are still likely to change. They change in a more radical way on our side when most of their operations are going to be like less going to have like less pollution. And like it's not just some random like renewable project that we don't know if it's going to succeed or we don't know the scale of it. Even if they don't change, we need more funds that go to like specific environmentally friendly startups is a good thing, because first of all, we think that the characteristics of these startups are that they are likely to take risks. They're more likely to innovate, which means that they bring new technology into the field of like environmentally friendly technology. This is simply a benefit because it's talking about we have like lower EV costs, or we are able to have like other renewable energy that is viable and is sustainable. We think that when they're able to use this fund, this is infinitely beneficial. But second of all, we think that these companies are likely to be less affected by like the short-term financial gains compared to these traditional companies that have like massive amount of employees. In terms of impact, they explain that there's no significant delta. We don't think that this is true. But before that, should
Usually sort of is the more likely scenario, it's lead to success. However, why the investment company are likely to invest then with lower success, lower probability of success compared to the other country which have several market controls and sorry,
Okay, we explained how these private investors also care about like the environment. If they are canceled, there's less people that puts money like into their banks, etc. And therefore, that is why they want to see green. On their side, you provide an alternative that they can see green just by investing in a massively polluting company, but in that specific renewable project. On our side, that alternative doesn't exist. What they turn to is companies that are completely green. The impact, there's a massive delta because these companies are able to grow to the point that they're even able to compete against traditional companies, because what this fund is going to be used for is research and development of further technologies like inside that are environmentally friendly. These are going to be used in order to lower the cost of this new technology that this company is creating in order to be able to compete against these companies that are polluting like massively. We think that just that fact is inherently like beneficial. Finally, in terms of just the burden of why these funds are able to distinguish like green companies, there's nuance to this. It doesn't contradict their claim that it's difficult to see if the renewable project is actually sound, first of all, because the incentive for ESG, when the bar is higher on our side, you have to show that your operation is like completely clean. We think that that's more easy to look at. On their side, just having like one project is enough, and therefore we don't think that there's large scrutinization. But yeah, and therefore we think that there's more green companies on our side, better for the environment, proud to impose.
If we're going to just another, they don't have to say anything. But we want you guys to understand this. So we're not just talking about like how we get more eco-friendly projects and technology. Also, we are trying to like discard or like decrease the number of like brown like not green projects too. Like I will explain what's later. And the right complex is not only about huge mega companies or anything like that, right? Those kind of companies, the size of them are sure. Like we can also talk about small and medium-sized corporations. Like that they could be also a huge polluter when you look at the problems globally. Like we're not always talking about the large companies of reaching this point. In my speech, I will say several things. First of all, I'd like to give rebuttals to the Prime Minister's students of Prime Minister. After that, I'd like to extend what our first speaker said, and last of all, I would like to do it away. Not like which side is rather than actual people, right? First of all, some rebuttals. So the first speaker talked about how it's unlikely to lead to environmental, benefit for the environment or something like that. Like what they said is that like things are not going to change, these going to be worse or something, right? think this is gonna directly clash with our arguments. I'm gonna talk about several points about like the point that they said that pollution is unlikely to change. First of all, if those companies keep polluting the world, even if they use the investment, and then the result doesn't like turn out to be good, then I guess that the investment is gonna be cut down. If the investors are not that stupid to invest in a company that keeps polluting and polluting the world, and I don't think that investor expects something to expect something for these kind of companies to become green or maybe to get some financial benefit or something like that, right? If those companies are stupid enough to like keep polluting the environment, I think the investment is going to be cut, right? And second of all, they were talking about like how it's costly to shifting to green technology or something like that. However, if that's so, then why don't you just give them money to get turned into like a clean or green company, right? If they have no money, like they're not going to be able to bring any technology, they're not going to be able to do research or anything like that, right? So I guess the more money you have, it's going to be better for them, better it is for them. So I guess that point is not. Moving on to the DPM, what they said is that the startup companies are also likely to be green or something like that. However, I don't think this is likely to happen because in the first place, when they try to start a company, when they try to start up a company, they're not going to be completely green in the first place, right? I don't understand why they do like how they are. Just even if they had some sort of incentive to like becoming green or like using clean technology or whatever that is, I don't think they have enough capacity to like think about like how like they're going to be I don't know, say like so. For these kinds of companies, I think that the only financing from the original side is much more important, right? When those companies are trying to start, they are like at the point of like zero, they have nothing, and they're not going to be invested on that point, right? So when they start, they're going to maybe start with polluting their environment, for example, but like after that, like they should be able to get money from this kind of early financing, and so that those kinds of companies are likely to get benefit. Also, if they get like financial incentive towards making the world clean or something, and that's gonna be beneficial for their environment too again. So therefore, what they say does not really make sense. Moving on to the extension of what I first week I said. So first of all, I'd like to explain if there was no OLED financing, how it's going to how the world is going to look like, right? So in a state school, I guess there are polluters, right? And they are polluting the different like industry that they are working on, like clean green technology or something like that, right? So why are they polluting the environment? First of all, they don't have enough money to shift to green or clean technology, right? And in order to change from polluter to like green company, they need huge amount of money, right? If they had this kind of like much money, they're gonna be able to do a research on like how to create green technology, or like they are likely to get personnel from like other fields to do a research or work for them or something like that. And they have to buy this kind of like expensive technology, like how they can reduce the amount of like air pollution or something like that, right? And second of all, they are not polluting the world because they want to pollute the world or anything like that, right? Because they are profit seekers, right? They're companies in the first place. They have the reputation of like how they don't want to like spread their infamous reputation or anything like that. And B, simply as I already said, they don't have enough money or so, right? So that's that clearly. And if their reputation goes down, if they get infamous, and I guess their revenue or like investment is likely to decrease. So that's okay. So right. And third of all, if they don't have any money, then if they didn't have any money, the only way for them to get revenue or profit is to keep polluting the world, right? Even if they succeed in like some sort of like one field or something like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a lot of money to change their brown industry to green industry or something like that, right? And there is no, like we cannot simply say that they're gonna be okay with only one eco-friendly project or something like that, right? So on the other hand, with only funding, what's likely to change, like how the mechanism goes, is this: one, simply the amount of money that they can get is likely to increase, right? And second of all, they can use the money for this eco-friendly or green project. They're gonna invest a lot of money into these kind of projects so that they're gonna be rich. They're gonna be like famous with that and like project, and they can then stabilize their companies, right? And they can use this money for a lot of things. For example, they can buy technology, they can buy people, or they can use this money for like advertisement, or like how they are creating this, green technology or clean technology or something like that, right? And then it's also likely to much incentive of like those kinds of investors, so they are likely to do so, right? B, they can also use that investment for this clean project, and they can use the leftover money for the industry that is like brown, but is not clean in the first place, right? Like they're not going to use the investment directly to this kind of like deals. However, if in a status where they use so much money for this kind of green technology or something like that, so then and if the investment can cover this kind of thing, then they can use the leftover money for other industries, and so
So therefore, they are likely to change their brand, like the industry to like clean and green and something like that. And yeah, it's so credible, and the reputation is likely to rise, right? What? Why? Because one, only funding is something that proves that they are doing something eco-friendly or clean, something like that, and they can talk about the right, and so they can raise their reputation. B, like people will like realize how which company is doing good, which company is doing bad, or something like that. C, like there's going to be more investment, only financing it also, but like they can also get the ESG investment or the other things, other customers or something like that, right? So what's the impact here is that one, we can have a better benefit for like the environment, right? It might sound like a big goal, and maybe you're gonna point out saying, hey, likelihood is gonna be low. However, we can still, think about the green technology in the environment, or like how we're going to movement towards shifting to eco-friendly, stuff, project or something like that, right? And furthermore, if this kind of investment increases, there's going to be much more research, much more development of those kinds of fuels. Right? At the end of the day, it's going to be a benefit for the environment. And second of all, there's going to be a financial benefit for companies too, right? Maybe the huge companies are not going to change that much. However, we are also focusing on small and medium-sized corporations. The characteristic that we gave you is that they cannot get any revenue without polluting, right? So they cannot succeed on with other fuels or something like that. If they could get this kind of like financial benefit, and plus if they are incentivized to become green with this financial benefit, I think they're going to try hard for the environment, and that's going to also lead to the impact of like how we can have better environment. Yeah, that's thank you.
I have to start my speech in 3, 2. You can't shift the resources from the big corporation which already exists to the small, relatively small, relatively young corporation, basically because it can enable you a long-term benefit and the most valuable the people, protecting most valuable people. Three things. First, I like to engage their main claim about refinancing and enable the big corporation to invest in new resources. Second, response to the way. Third is BOP pushes. The first, the response about the main claim about proposition. The main claim is that hey, there's some awareness of the green awareness exists. If investor and consumers pressure the corporation to do so, but but the claim is about but only the one limiting factor is that no, they don't have money, so they have to have money because they need only financing. Two response. First, if the condition of the only if the condition of the investor and the consumers have the incentive to accuse these kind of population, why you need only financing? Oftentimes, what they have to defend is a population which already have the run businesses, which mean they do have enough allocation to create enough resources to allocate the money on the budget to renewable energy, even without refinancing. Second, I think there are things about like significant premises. The two premises. First is this corporation big enough to be decided big enough to be decided by, I don't know, counsel by consumers. Second, they are large enough to be a listed corporation because the premise of their analysis, they want to be green, but they cannot do so. It's these premises is remaining. There's big enough to influence the entire social life, big enough to be a listed corporation, which can be influenced by the investors. No, thank you. But I think their claim about the more money and the more investment can bear fruit only after explaining two things. First, when we finance money,
continuously used in a way that is good manner. With second, in a way when refinancing is cannot be this continue for a long time. I think what we are telling from the beginning of the speech, these kind of people, this kind of refinancing less likely to be the meaningful. So why is the case? Two reasons. The first is that I want to ask Barclays, Morgan Stanley, asset management. I want to ask that their detailed dialogue analysis about, hey, they are the network actors, they are really care about ESG investment. I think the main incentive is on the Morgan Stanley asset management is getting the money. However, they don't want to be kicked out by the consumers. The protest movement, hey, you should cancel the creating accounts on Bank of America. I think the protest movement is critical for that asset management corporation. Second, they don't want to be kicked by the financial market. Things like EU legislative change disable them to join the market if the investment is really bad. I think they just want to profit, but they don't want to be kicked by these kind of consumer and financial assets. So implication this from the Prime Minister and DPM already talked about is that they just given the doing the refinancing, they don't care about what's actually going on. So going on. So which means I think this is what more than happy to banish the refinancing and rather investment to small pure green corporation. Then what is about the weighing of analysis? Not see the nuance. This is debate about resource trade-off. The leader position the claim about hey, we also have the pure green startup. I think this is unacceptable. They don't financing anyway. In that end, why the investing the pure green energy resources rather than big enough corporation who already has advanced businesses is inherently important. Two reasons. First, in terms of vulnerability. Second is long-term benefit. First is the vulnerability is what we can protect is a relatively small population because indeed relatively small population compared to them because they are in these days the energy consumption is the aware in these days. Second, a relatively young population because of the awareness of the environment is a lot in the recent 3 decades, which means we can have accept the relatively small population, which means about comparing in their set of at best they can protecting the most already British population because oil is already getting enough money, which means we can give money to the entrepreneur which is unrepresented in the society. We can they are likely to get some new investment from the Morgan Stanley asset management. This is really important. Second is a way is a long-term benefit. What we telling is from the beginning of speech that innovation, which is critical for the green, solving the green energy problem, is well slow in the relatively small and young population because of which is a flexible resource allocation because of less affected by the short-termist investors because they are less likely to invest in population, which means the innovation since there's less cost on the electric vehicle, which is critical to the poor people buy the electric vehicle, since there's less more innovative the green energy, which is critical to solving the deadlock between the current energy and the deadlock, is likely to happen in another account. So because of this vulnerability of impact, as a second long-term benefit impact, we already override our position. Lastly, the burdens that they have, they didn't talk about. So the burdens they have, they never fulfill is why are the green are already financing functioning well. I don't see the way that they get the financing, when they can get financing, the criteria of the funding is continuous. I think these kind of OE premises or the important characteristics why the green OE and funding is functioning well, that doesn't explain from entire speech on the DLO, which is under mechanized from begin with. Which means I think this is safe to assume that they are likely to be cancel the project. They're the renewable energy project likely to be marginal or just only marginal change. I think this is the less important compared to what we can assure that the more resources on relatively small and young population. Happy to go for this.
Spaghetti,
Write this small speech in between two points. Firstly, in today's debate, the government side failed to explain why they can improve the environmental things because they just rely on the just like very like idealistic situation kind of like success in starting up product or kind of innovation or something like that. But we don't see the actual like detailed product or innovations coming from the government side. So yeah, and actually it's very less likely scenario, right? Because if they can claim the bigger thing, it's very impactful. The bigger impact. We can say anything. Yeah, I guess. For example, we can create the strongest AI to solve any problem like politics or whatever, right? So we judges don't raise this point in terms of likelihood, right? Right. All right. And however, in comparison, we are based on the argument. We can just support the already existing certain like certain basement to continue to improve the eco-friendly part their businesses or just like like clean up their polluted area or polluted businesses like that. So it's more likely and concrete is a concrete explanation, right? So okay, I will talk about it. Firstly, the incentive of investors. They say, actually, we predict the stance. They said, kind of investment banking or something like that. They have their main incentive is just getting money, right? Get money, right? We predict free credit that, but also they said ESG investment or kind of reputation they are just investing the eco-friendly part is important, right? It's very great analysis, I think. However, the point is, in their side house, actually they don't. They are likely to invest to environment thing in the first place. Why? Because in their side house, two types of companies are here. Firstly, very big company which is already eco-friendly. However, in the and secondly, very small or middle class companies, which is called startup, which might be like beneficial for environment, but the actual possibility of it is like 0.01%. I yeah. Okay. First, let's talk about the former like bigger company. Um, yeah. However, just think about their incentives. They already have reputation of eco-friendly, right? In other parts. So if they get more investment from other countries, they don't want to invest anymore to the part. They just do instead invest more like profitable parts, right? So actually, in this debate, eco-friendly things is less profitable, and we both sides concede that. So yeah, it's very likely. So yeah, it's useless in terms of eco-friendly things, right? Actually, so just they just investment. And why they happen? Because also like investing company or what more profit, more gain from their investment. So they can invest this kind of big company because Yeah, actually, they also can get kind of like eco-friendly reputations from just investing this kind of like fake eco-friendly company, right? So it's very likely to happen, and it doesn't mean in terms of environmental things, right? So environmental crashes is not like burden issues for the government, right? And yeah, and secondly, yeah, startups. I already told you we don't see the clear mechanism or like record of like innovation happening over like that. So we don't credit that. But if the if it does, if it happens, we clearly won't already because we have yeah more like livelihood in outside of us. So alright, I'll explain the more detailed example which just what the previous with speakers said. Yeah, we have got alright. So firstly there is two types of merit in outside house. Firstly, eco-friendly. They can improve the eco-friendly part more. And secondly, they can decrease the polluted area or business, right? Firstly, for example, let's imagine the company which is already getting profit from eco-friendly parts, but they don't have enough materials or factory to create more investment. So the system of like the business is already good, but the number of this kind of system is program. So they can't really rely on this kind of yeah the profit from their main profit, right? So however, if they get investment from other company, they can also make other like more friendly factors and yeah and this kind of yeah saturation will going to happen and yeah they can really rely on this kind of yeah eco-friendly parts. So that's the unique point we have, right? And also they can of course like deal with they already use or yeah currently used polluted area or business part. For example, if they created the very like like polluted yeah factories like that which might have like kind of like a asbestos right? Yeah, they can yeah they if they don't have money, they can deal with to like run their own business, another business, yeah, to continue, right? But if they get money, they can yeah deal with this kind of things because of the reputation of eco-friendly things, right? So yeah, of course, if they don't deal with this kind of like bad reputations in terms of environmental things, yeah, their like consumers or investors will discredit the company. So the company clearly have the incentive to deal with these kind of things. However, in comparison, in the government side, they never explain this kind of like great example, right? So we're better in the kind of like livelihood and relevancy or yeah whatever. Yeah, so it's better I think. And finally, if we lose in terms of like if environmental thing is lost, we can still want the like we can achieve the investment to small and middle company, right? So in terms of that, we also better, right? Maybe my next program will extend that. So I'm trying to put things.
Starting the speech in 3, 2, 1. First things first, it's possible whether green company will increase or not on government side. But second, the total amount of renewable project will why on corporation side will rather increase. But even if we assume that environmental crash is totally lost, still why we can uniquely have small or start company, so we 1 by 1, where the green company will increase or not on government. God told you that since startup or small company, you think that they can gain investment by investors, they will first of all do green project on their side first. But they were totally misunderstanding the capacity of startups, right? In order to do renewable project, it requires more initial cost than to do pollutive project. Why? Because if it is not true, then there is no pollutive project, right? In that case, they cannot start green project because they cannot gain investment as long as they don't implement green project. But on our side, we say that we should also like focus on the but on our side, we said that since this kind of like initial investment we are done to even to this kind of startup company, we currently do in project project, currently not just about the project project outside can uniquely save or subsidize this company. But second of all, they told you before that they should like also focus on. We say that we should also focus on already existing company which implement pollution project, right? Why? Because pollution done by already existing company is much more bigger than this kind of small company or startup company. On that paradigm, these companies will reluctant by the fact that they are not invested because as long as they don't like create this kind of politic project, in that case, they will stick to current politic project because they won't be able to get the initial cost. And therefore, they will try to do politic project and gain that and more profit. But on the opportunity side, since they'll be able to get initial investment cost, in that case, this kind of company will uniquely be able to do rather more like green, like renewable project. And they told you before that this company does not have any incentive to implement this kind of renewable project. But we say that first of all, this like only financing aims to like require these companies to implement this kind of renewable project. But also we say that companies do have incentive to decrease project. Why? Because if they then project, it will decrease the trust by investors, right? Investors, in that case, investors will rather invest to rather green technology rather than this kind of like polluted companies. And that's why we say that this kind of company have the incentive to implement the green green project. But second of all, about the rain, total amount of renewable project, why on our side it will increase. So even if the current project does not decrease, at least amount of renewable project increase on both. Why? Two reasons. First of all, initial cost will enable startups and rather small companies to do renewable project. In that case, we can uniquely increase the number of renewable projects because this kind of startup or small company otherwise won't be able to implement this kind of renewable project because they don't have any initial cost. But second of all, on the other side, companies who already eco-friendly will gain investment and on the government side, but therefore there is this risk delta on their side because they are already doing this kind of renewable project. But even if we assume that environmental crash is totally wash, we can uniquely have small or start companies so we win. I think government we've already went why small companies is much more important. So it is sufficient to say that or rather on opportunity side, we can like save this kind of small companies. Why on our side we can say uniquely save this kind of small companies. As I told you before, small companies don't have capacity to start renewable project. On opportunity side, we can invest these companies, while on government side, they won't be able to, since they just prioritize this kind of already green company, which is big, since they were able to have initial cost which can implement this kind of green project or renewable project. Therefore, on our side, uniquely we can protect this kind of smaller companies to the cost.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. So it's probably a consensus that the funds on our side are likely to be directed to completely green companies that their operation doesn't have part that pollutes, or it's not, we don't think that there was large contention in this debate. It was a consensus. Let's look at the main case coming from opposition. What they said is that these money going to these companies can be used for eco-friendly things, and this is very beneficial. First of all, they don't engage with how the condition of all the finance is to provide funding for renewable projects undertaken by companies that are significant polluters in other areas. So if they use this funding to go completely green, first of all, we don't think that this funding is enough to even achieve this. This is directed to just one project. They don't do the legwork to prove why this happens on their side. But second of all, note that they come out of the scope of olive finance at the point that they do this. So it's unclear why they want to stop the fund as a result of this. But second of all, what's unclear about their case is what these renewable projects are. We don't think that they explain what this is. We on the counter explain how this is likely to be like at best maybe like planting trees while still continuing this like pollution operation. Or what's worse is a common practice for carbon offsetting, which is by buying like a forest and saying that you prevented trees from being torn down, which essentially doesn't do anything to help for the environment. We went another step further to explain why this is the likely project that undertaken, which is first of all, how there's lack of scrutiny by private financial institutions. Their incentive is to get profit while seeing green. Both is still achieved because first of all, these companies can still continue operation. They can bring the money to that fund. But second of all, they can advertise these projects and seem green, but in reality, it's not doing anything. But second of all, we explain how the incentive of these companies that are significant polluters are to rather use these fundings to enhance their day-to-day operations. This is something that directly ties to their profit, using this to further do something that's like has a speculative benefit, such as like the renewable project, is not something that's strategic for these companies to do. They said that these companies are scared of damaged reputation or backlash. First of all, I already explained how such such scrutiny is limited when they operate in developing countries where the regulation is lax, where citizens of the ground don't prioritize efforts of pollution, but effects of pollution, but like rather than having employment. So this already falls. But second of all, more importantly, they can shy away from this by using all the financing to utilize the seemingly good projects of like renewable energy to say, look, we are already doing something that's good for the environment, which is assured by this olive financing like institution. Um, has a stamp on it. So we think that even if there's like damage to reputation, we think that they can still decrease it on their side. So at this point, the impact of op is largely speculative. We give you mechanism as to explain how it is rather counterproductive. Our main case is about how startups that are eco-friendly are going to receive good funds. When both sides concedes that there's a resource trade-off, we don't have to prove that startups are perfect. We just have to prove that such investment is better than investing in a major polluter. We said that startups are unlikely to be green. It requires a lot of money. That is exactly why these funds are going to be used effectively. They basically concede that there is significant delta with this money. But we also explain how they are more likely to be green because they don't have pre-existing supply chains that rely on fossil fuels. They're likely to be more risk averse and future oriented to see how the environmental regulations are being tightened. And so it's strategic for them to be green. In these cases, why these funds are significantly beneficial, the weighing is that first, you're sure that these funds will be used to worsen environmental damage. These companies don't have incentive to do so. But second of all, just the growth of these companies in and of themselves is beneficial. When you have access to innovative technology like carbon capture, or you have like solar panels that use cheap material, which is more accessible to companies and individuals. This is only possible when there's enough funds for these research and development. They're able to use the fund to lower the prices of this and make it more competitive in the market. And therefore, regardless of where these funds are used, we completely explain how this is benefit, how to like this.
It was 3 cents.